Hi, welcome to my channel, America Teacher 5th grade, where we go over all things 5th grade. Right now we are in the middle of the Revolutionary War. So actually in the previous video, we just had the British surrender, and now we're going to talk about the effects of the war. This is kind of a really huge transitional time for our country, and just so you know, I am Miss America and I'm here to read to you, or if you want to, you can read it yourself. You can mute me, but if you're like traveling or something and you're just trying to use your time well, so we are going back into history so that we can learn from our history. So hopefully we don't make some of the same mistakes as we go forward into our future. So here's our timeline from 1760 to 1790, and it says in 1783 slavery is abolished in Massachusetts. Yay for Massachusetts and being one of the very first ones to abolish slavery in its brand new state. And then in 1787 the Northwest Ordinance is passed, and so we'll be reading to learn more about that. These are some of the things that we need to know, and it says, how did the American Revolution affect life in the new United States? Important vocabulary words. Abolitionist, and here it is over here to help you pronounce it. Abolitionist. And let's keep reading. Or anti-slavery group. So the Quakers, remember that religious group in Pennsylvania? In 1775, Quakers in Philadelphia had started the country's first abolitionist group, or anti-slavery group. And they even did that before we were a country. Perhaps they were writing to England to say, hey, why don't we end this? Okay. Another word would be abolish. And that seems to be the root word of abolitionist. Another word is territory, and we also have ordinance. Important people to know is Elizabeth Freeman. Also, let's say if I can pronounce this correctly, Michiquiniqua. I'm going to give it kind of a Spanish, even though I think it's Native American. Next we have, say, Goyawatha. Also, let's see, places. Northwest Territory. Cause and effect is our graphic organizer for our focus skill. Let's go ahead and read this picture, and then I'm going to move it up so that my picture is not blocking this, and then you can take a screenshot if you like so that you can do your own reading. Speaking against slavery, African American ministers were leaders in an effort to end slavery. Sounds like a great thing. All right, effects of the war. You are there. Slavery is wrong, a man shouts to the crowd. Just read the Declaration of Independence. It says everybody should have liberty. Other members of the group nod their heads. It's not right that we should win our freedom but deny freedom to enslaved people, your mother says. We should stop slavery, another person says, but that's going to be hard. Okay, and so it really didn't happen right away. Maybe this will talk about it, but I don't know if we ever really would have gotten our Constitution going, because we certainly needed the help of the South and even some of the middle colonies to stay that. So anti-slavery artifacts, this medal and sermon illustrate the anti-slavery movement, but I do want people to know that not everybody did that, and many people, white people, did help free the black people. So and that's where it was. This says injustice and impolicy, the slave trade, slavery of the a sermon, and so this was something that probably made it into the museums. Here we go. New ideas. Let's get paper. By 1776, the states had begun to write their own constitutions. Several of them used Virginia's constitution as a model. It began with a list of basic freedoms, including the right to trial by jury, the freedom to hold elections, and freedom of the press. These and many others were freedoms that people fought for in the American Revolution. The Declaration of Independence had changed the way some Americans thought about people's rights. It said that each person had the right to life and liberty. However, state constitutions did not give this freedom to all people. Women were not given the same rights as men, such as voting rights, and most African Americans remained enslaved. So there were always a few people like John Adams hoping to help. Women needed the help of men, and the blacks needed the help of the whites to become free. Early attempts to end slavery. Some people believed that slavery should be ended. In 1775, Quakers in Philadelphia had started the country's first abolitionist or anti-slavery group. Anti-slavery feelings grew after the Declaration was approved. In Massachusetts, an enslaved woman named Elizabeth Freeman sued to be free. When asked why she was suing, she said, "I heard that paper the Declaration read yesterday, that all people are born equal." The jury agreed, and she won. In 1783, Massachusetts abolished or ended slavery. Over time, other northern states also abolished slavery. So it wasn't just the first, but these were all kind of, state constitutions. And remember, we aren't united very carefully, nationally or federally, Reading check. Cause and effect. How did the Declaration of Independence change the way some people viewed slavery? Please answer that in a complete sentence. I'll go ahead and do this picture and then pull that down, or maybe I'll just kind of do that one when I'm done reading. If you want to go ahead and take a screenshot of all of this, it says moving west. Settlers move west of the Appalachians to build new lives. I'm kind of like right there, and so let's see, we don't have all the reading if I'm there. So here we go. And I'll just move it again in a little bit. Okay, location. The Northwest Territory covered more than 260,000 square miles. What river formed its southern boundary? So these are sections in one township. So, and they were each kind of there. My husband has an ancestor from Utah where he was kind of hanging out, and they said, all right, even though they thought he was kind of a young upstart, when they started their township, they kind of just sort of drew lots, and whatever number you drew, that was where your farm was going to be, or your townhome anyways, and then maybe they would have farms outside the town. So, and notice that these are like 1 mile, so lots of big properties. Western settlements. When the Revolutionary War ended, the United States did not have enough money to pay all the soldiers who had served. However, the United States had won more land from the British, and instead of paying the soldiers with money, Congress decided to pay some of them with land. Soldiers received different amounts of land based on their rank and how long they had served. Some soldiers were given hundreds of acres of land in areas west of the Appalachians. So again, if we remember, the Native Americans, a lot of them, especially in this area, were fighting with the British in an area to keep them for themselves. When the colonists won, again, they don't have land, or they don't have money, so they say, hey, you guys can go there. So the Native Americans were perhaps right to side with the British. Unfortunately, it wasn't there, and I don't even know if those who sided with the colonists, if they were treated in kinder ways, but Congress, remember, these aren't individual policies. This is a government policy that said, yep, you guys can move over there. Of course, we're not going to offend you. We're not going to police it. You guys are on your own in fighting the Native Americans for your land and protecting your own selves. Moving west. Many former soldiers moved to these western areas. However, not all of the people who moved west were soldiers. Many families moved west of the Appalachians to start farms. Eager to raise money, Congress sold large amounts of land to these settlers and to land companies. So again, the Native Americans, wasn't the individuals, although it was the individuals who purchased the land, but they did purchase it. They just purchased it from the U.S. government, not from the Native Americans. Okay. The United States now stretched west to the Mississippi River, but British troops were still in some northwestern forts. Spain also claimed lands along the country's western and southern borders. Many Native Americans groups lived in the lands along the Ohio River. South of the Ohio River. Some of the fastest growing areas in the country were those lands south of the Ohio River. During the American Revolution, more than 100,000 people moved in the area, then later became the state of Kentucky. Others moved in the area that became the state of Tennessee. Cause and effect. What caused Congress to pay many soldiers with land? They didn't have cash money. So I think that's kind of why our government may want to be going towards a digital currency. I don't know if that's a good idea. It sounds like it could also be inflationary, but they no longer have land to pay us. And, and we just learned if you print too much money, then you get inflation. So moving west, settlers moved west of the Appalachians to build new lives. And down here, they're chopping down a tree to build a home. Okay. Again, the question is what river formed in the southern boundary, and this river right here is the Ohio River. The Northwest Territory. I think it's funny that right now this area is called the Northwest Territory. When I think of the Northwest Territory, I think of like the states of Washington and Oregon and Idaho, maybe even Montana. Over time, thousands of Americans followed the Ohio River west and settled the land north of it. The area became known as the Northwest Territory. A territory is land that belongs to a nation but is not a state and is not represented in the national government. So remember, they were like, no taxation without representation. So these people are like, I'm not expecting to pay any taxes because I'm not being represented. There we go. Governing the land. At first, there was no plan for how land in the territory should be divided. It was hard to tell where each person's property ended. In 1785, Congress passed a new land ordinance, or set of laws. The ordinance explained how land in the territory would be measured, divided, and sold. Land was first divided into squares called townships. Each township was then divided into 36 smaller squares or sections. Here, let me move this up now. In 1787, Congress passed another ordinance called the Northwest Ordinance of 1787. It set up a plan for governing the Northwest Territory and for forming new states from its lands. When any region of the Northwest Territory had more than 60,000 people, it could become a state. The ordinance promised settlers freedom of religion. It also said that slavery would not be allowed in states formed from the Northwest Territory. So they said all of these states would become free states. Pardon me. So cause and effect. How did the Northwest affect slavery? So it expanded freedom to more areas up there. And Almost done. Go. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it right here if you want to take a picture, and then no, I'll slide it down because we'll do the review later. Let's go ahead. But if you want to take a picture now, and you can read it on yourself. Mute me. All right, the Native Americans, this is kind of their parallel timeline of when things happened. It says after the Revolution. So it would have been nice to maybe have another one over here, like, hey, this is really great for the American colonists. I don't know if it is so great for them. So this is Michikanequa organizes Native Americans. So he was right to organize them. He's like, hey, Britain didn't do it, but we're going to have to do this ourselves. In 1794, there is the Battle of Fallen Timbers is fought, and I suppose we will be reading about that down here. In 1795, we have the Treaty of Greenville is signed, and from what I'm hearing is, I don't know if these treaties are still honored or not, but technically they are supposed to be in a court of law. And over here we have Red Jacket warns against the Big Tree Treaty. So this is a Native American who wore a fancy red jacket. I'm sure he got it from a British officer. And he's like, I don't know if this is going to be a good idea. I'm going to pause this real quick and take a drink. Maybe you can hear it in my voice. I need a break. All right, this is my last page, so I'm really hoping my voice holds out for all of this. Let's go ahead and start on battles for land. Quick, take a picture if you haven't yet. In the months after the Revolutionary War, the British left many of their forts in the West. Without British help, it became harder for Native Americans to stop settlers from moving onto their lands. New fighting breaks out. Native Americans in the Northwest Territory united to fight against the new settlers. Their leaders included Michikanequa, also known as Little Turtle, a member of the Miami tribe in what are now Ohio and Indiana. And so I want you guys to notice, so Miami tribe, is that in Florida? Did these people also migrate north and south based on the seasons? Most likely. In the early 1790s, Native American forces soundly defeated United States soldiers in battles in what are now the states of Indiana and Ohio. In 1794, a larger United States force won a major victory at the Battle of Fallen Timbers near what is now Toledo, Ohio. More lands are taken. In 1795, Michikanequa and the leaders of the other tribes agreed to accept the Treaty of Greenville. In this treaty, they gave up most of their land in the Northwest Territory. Many Native Americans were angry that the United States demanded their lands. After the treaty was signed, they stopped trusting in the United States government. Some Native Americans sold their land to companies. The Holland Land Company, for example, wanted to buy much of the land in western New York from the Seneca Indians. The Seneca leader, the Seneca leader, Sego-Wyatha, also known as Red Jacket, warned his tribe not to sell its land. However, other leaders ignored his advice and signed the Big Tree Treaty, which let the company buy most of the Seneca's land. In the years to come, settlers from the United States moved farther and farther west. They cleared the land for farms and towns. The lives of Native Americans would never be the same. Cause and effect. What was the effect of the Treaty of Greenville? So again, remember, land was, was probably worth more, and even though they were paid for it, I don't know. It's pennies on the dollars compared to inflation today. Again, what was the effect of the Treaty of Greenville? Summary. After the Revolutionary War, states wrote constitutions. Views on slavery changed. Western settlement led to land policies and fights with Native Americans. Review. What to know. How did the American Revolution affect life in the new United States? 2. Vocabulary. Describe the difference between a state and a territory. I think that's a good thing to know even for today. 3. History. How did Congress pay some soldiers for their service in the Revolutionary War? 4. Critical thinking. How do you think Native Americans felt about the Treaty of Greenville? 5. Write a news article. Imagine you were a reporter covering the Elizabeth Freeman court case. Write an article about the jury's decision. Cause and effect. On a separate sheet of paper, copy and complete this graphic organizer. The effect is anti-slavery feelings grew because, why? And then here, because the settlers moved farther west, an effect was what? All right, thank you so much for staying with me, and we are almost done. We just have the review. You can either choose not to do it, or maybe you are learning that you would rather do the review first and see what you need to study or improve upon. So keep going. Your self-discipline, self-reliance, self-respect, respect for others, it's got to be increasing, okay? You are doing amazing things. You are going to be an amazing leader someday, and I just want you to have a fabulous day.